I can see what people are asking, what questions they have, what they want to know. And it looks like it's working. I'm just checking all my Facebook and YouTube and everywhere, and it looks like it's working. It looks like people are seeing me, and I'm really excited about that. As I'm clicking start, I'm just like getting everything. Like there's a million screens loading right now, but it would appear that I'm actually going live. Oh, now everything is breaking down. Okay, there we go. Awesome. Okay, perfect. Now, it's Thursday morning. It's almost time for Halloween. And I would love to know on Thursday mornings or every morning, what do you have that gives you energy for the day? Is it water? Is it coffee? Is it tea? Is it kombucha or whatever kombucha is? I'm not exactly sure. But I would love to know. So comment below what it is that you drink in the morning. I'll tell you for me, I have a couple things. One, I get up early. I get up at 5 every day. I'm like a 5 a.m. miracle person. And I like to get up at 5, so I have a coffee then. Um, and then I also usually have a coffee around 8:30 when I get to work. And then that's about it for caffeine for the day. At lunch, if it's a day where I'm not taking a nap, we take a lot of naps at our house, then I'll have like Diet Mountain Dew or an afternoon coffee or something like that. But if we're taking a nap as a family, which we do a couple of days a week, when I have off, then I don't at those times. And so that's kind of my coffee routine. But I would love to know, and if you could comment below, what's your caffeine routine? Or maybe you don't do caffeine and you're one of those people. I have gotten a lot of questions in, and I get questions across so many different places: Facebook, Instagram, um, YouTube, LinkedIn, like questions just come in everywhere, and it's really hard for me to keep track of them all. So I have condensed everything down to the one question place. And it's the one question place that parents have told me time and again is the easiest for them, which is text message. So as you'll see in this bottom right hand corner, um, if you have a question, you can text me. It's 402 256 0768. You text that and I will answer your questions. And that's what we're doing today is we're going to answer some questions. And yesterday I did a video on Halloween and I got a lot of good feedback about what people are planning to do for Halloween. And today we're just going to talk through some parenting questions and the things that you want to know. And so I'm going to pull those questions up and let's see. So 402-256-0768 is the number. It's probably on this, like the buttons and stuff, and it's right here. So you can text me if you have a question. And I'm going to pull them up right here on the screen, actually. Okay. Dr. B, do you have any advice for weaning my almost 15-month-old down to one sippy cup at 7:30 a.m. while I make breakfast and nursing once at 7 p.m.? I need to plan to wean, and I'm not sure where to begin. Also, my supply is low, and I'd like to wean before I just run out altogether. Great question. Kudos to you for nursing for over 15 months now. That's fantastic. A lot of moms are not able to do that, which is totally fine, but you've done it and you're saying, okay, I want to wean my almost 15-month-old. Sounds reasonable. Right now, you're getting, or you're doing a nursing session before bed and then a sippy cup in the morning. I assume the sippy cup is milk. It's either breast milk that's pumped or whole milk. Either way is totally fine. What I would say is to completely wean off nursing, cut one nursing session or pumping session per week. Now, that means that like here, maybe you've got a pumping and then a nursing. So cut one. I would just cut the pumping because I'm sure that's more annoying. And then wait a week. And then when you're ready, you can just stop the nursing. There's really, you don't like have to, when baby's this old and your supply is probably where it's at with the amount that you're pumping, there's not a whole lot that you need to do except just stop nursing. You might have to do ibuprofen if things are painful, or warm packs or massage or something like that if it's painful. But in general, most people kind of just stop. And oftentimes it's like, we went on vacation, we got sick, something happened, we stopped nursing, no big deal. In terms of like the baby side of things, how do you do that? Well, 15-month-olds don't need to eat overnight. They don't need to eat before bed. I'm going to say that again. 15-month-olds don't need to eat before bed. They don't need a bottle. They don't need a sippy cup of warm milk. You can give them some water after dinner, but otherwise they'll get their nutrition from the food that they eat. So you really don't have to do anything. I would just say instead of nursing, we do our bedtime routine and include like reading some stories and cuddling and then putting baby down awake in his crib saying night night, leaving the room, letting him go to sleep on his own. If you if you're not quite sure how to make all that work, I have a sleep training course called Mighty Sleepers that I do, and that helps parents to go through that. It's just at mightysleepers.com. I don't have a link or anything right here, but it's mightysleepers.com where you can go through that if you're and that course does talk through in more depth the nursing thing and how to wean nighttime feedings, both like before a year and after a year when you're ready to do that. So it kind of goes through all of that. But that's basically what I would do. So cut one nursing session per week or one pumping session per week, and then drop down to no more feedings before bed. Dinner time is our last meal. If they're thirsty or need a drink, just a sippy cup of water. And I'll speak in more broad terms too about like how much milk does a 15-month-old need on a day-to-day basis. Well, they need 0 milk. You can just drink water if you want. We typically, I recommend, and what we do at our house is we just offer like a sippy cup of whole milk at meal times, breakfast, lunch, dinner. They usually don't drink it all. That's fine. You never have to count ounces of cow's milk after a year or anything really. And then, like, you don't have to count anything. You don't have to count specific things. And then once they have had their dinner and they've drank or not drank their milk, we, wash out their sippy cup for the next day and start again. And then just water the rest of the day. Water between meals. If they're carrying something around, it's water. If they're thirsty and want to drink, it's water. That's all you need to do. Does that make sense? Hopefully that resonates with you and that's worked for you. Comment below if that makes sense, because that's a sticky point where there's a lot of confusion about like how much milk do kids need. There's a lot of information out there that they need this many ounces, and parents come in and they say, I read that they need 18.34 ounces and they're only getting 17.81 ounces. Is that enough? I'm like, guys, let's step back. This will be just fine. There's people around the world that do not have access to cow's milk, and they grow up to be Nobel Prize winners as well. And so we know that it's not a requirement. Now, there have been a lot of great got milk campaigns that have made everybody think that you need milk in order to survive for even a few minutes. But milk at meal times, water the rest of the day. Tangent, sorry. Okay, next question. And again, if you have a question, 402-256-0768. Like, I get them like live on the thing, so you can actually like send in questions and I'll get more questions answered. The next question, one of our twins has started biting his twin brother. How do we stop this? Oh, this is tough. So in general, biting is normal. Kids bite each other because it gets them attention and they can't communicate. When you can't communicate and somebody takes your toy or somebody doesn't do the thing that you want, you try and get their attention in a different way. And the number 1 way is biting. The number 2 way is hitting. The number 3 way is banging your head on the wall. All of these things are normal, annoying things that kids do to each other and to their parents. For biting, I would make as little fuss about it as possible. Whether they're biting a sibling, whether they're biting a kid in daycare, which everybody's kid bites at daycare. Not a big deal, not something that you need to try and change in a major way. Daycares are pros at taking care of biting. Everybody's the biter, everybody's the bitee at some point. Not a big deal. Instead, what I would try and do is give it as little attention as possible. Because when they do things like bite, when they do things like hit, when they do things like bang their head against the wall, oh my gosh, don't do that. Well, that was a huge rush of attention that I just got. I'm going to keep doing things like that because it gets me attention, and I love attention because I am a toddler and attention is my currency. And biting, hitting, throwing the remote down the stairs, breaking things, banging my head against the wall, they get lots of attention. And so that's why they do them. So instead, what you can do is, we don't bite. And then you just separate them. Whether it be if he's biting you, then, we don't bite. And then you set them down. Oh my gosh, well, I didn't get much attention from that. That really didn't go as I had hoped. I'm not going to do that again. If they're biting sibling, we don't bite. Separate. Not a big deal. You can't do timeout. You don't have to do timeout. It's not effective because that's just attention. And oftentimes timeout in this younger age group, they're like running off and you're giving them so much attention as you try and chase them around or hold them down in timeout or things like that. It's just not effective. We don't bite. Put them away. You can talk to them later about it. Like, hey guys, well, let's say we're sitting down to lunch. Remember when so-and-so bit his brother? I bet that hurt. Doesn't biting hurt? Look how strong it is when we bite things. Look how we bite our celery and eat our celery and blah, blah, blah. Just talk about it then. Don't make it like a lecture. Just make it like a discussion that's happening over lunch. That's non-judgmental. That's what I do. Hey, Dr. B, any advice for an early riser? 3-year-old is up and going so early, like 4:30 a.m. early. Tired, tried lots of suggestions, but will always take more. Early risers are probably the most challenging sleep training issue that I talk through parents with, because it can be really challenging to change that. Like, bedtime routine, I find, is quite easy to change because kids are already tired and we're just kind of breaking bad habits and starting new good habits. We talk through that a lot in these Facebook Lives and YouTube things. I find that early risers are really the trickiest people to fix. Couple ideas. One, push bedtime back. I'm not talking like keep them up until 10:30 or 11 at night so they sleep in, because that would just be horrendously bad on the front end of things. But if you can consistently push them back maybe 15 minutes and then 15 minutes more and then 15 minutes more, what I think most people will find is then that they'll start to creep forward in the time that they wake up. And then you can work your way back. Once they're 5:30 waker uppers, which would be better than 4:30 certainly, then you can work your way back, or you can keep pushing it up. I don't think that you'll have to push it too far. I think most kids do fine. They go through these spurts where they are early risers and then they go back to normal shortly thereafter. So it's usually not too long-standing traumatic. Now, all that being said, it is October 29th, and on November 1st, time changes. So everything's going to be thrown out the window when time changes. And I'll try and put a little something together on how to deal with the time change, but I wouldn't do anything until the time changes. Fallback is fallback. So we get an extra hour of sleep. Is that the bad one or the good one? I can never remember which one's the bad one. I think spring is the bad one. Spring is the bad one for... No, fall's the bad one for parents. They're opposite. That's how I remember. As a college student, fall is great because you fall back and you get an extra hour of sleep. As a parent, the schedule falls back and then they wake up an hour earlier. Spring is the bad one when you're a college student because you lose that hour of sleep. Spring is the good one as a parent because then they sleep in an hour later, presumably. Okay, so that's how it works. I'll have to put something together. I obviously need some more coffee and my mental math isn't quite functioning at 100% right now. And so I'm not 100% on all of my suggestions for how to deal with daylight savings time. You should start now though. And I'll try and put something out later today about exactly what to do because I can't think in those math terms. Okay, we've been dealing with this for a couple of weeks. 4-year-old, same bedtime routine every night. Book, prayers, potty, brush teeth, drink of water, bed, tuck in, night. Now, once he's tucked in, he will talk from his room. Mom, I need this. Come tuck me in. Where's Dad? I need covers on me. And I don't go in. And if I don't go in with each request, he will start to cry. He and my youngest share a room, so I don't want him waking up the house. But I can't go in 20 times. Any tips? Why is he doing this now? I'll watch for an answer on your videos. Thank you. Okay. Totally normal. 4-year-olds are notorious at our house and across the nation for frequent stalling. And I actually did a podcast last week. So if you go to Parenting Matters podcast and listen to last week's episode with Jessica Borg, I talk through stalling strategies and what to do. And we talk specifically about early bedtimes and how effective that can be. And I talk about this also in my Mighty Sleepers Big Kids course. Like I had a Mighty Sleepers Infant course. I was going to make a totally separate course, but instead I just combined them all. So there's an infant section and there's a Big Kids section. And we talk about stalling in the Big Kids section because it's a huge problem. Because once they go down, they're fine, but getting them down to sleep can be just a nightmare for parents. And so we talk through that quite a bit. And I just noticed that my shirt is like really white. So I'm just going to turn down this light a little bit and see if that helps. I don't think that helped. In general, same bedtime routine, robotic response is most important. Instead of getting the tucking back in, instead of getting the drinks, the hugs, the, petting the dog, all of those different things, what you do is you just do a robotic response of, oh, I see you, child, and we're going back to bed. Night night, see you in the morning. Make it robotic. And then there's no secondary gain. Eventually that helps because what they learn is, okay, in the past, I would get a drink, I would get a hug, I would get a story, I would get to pet the dog, I would get to, get another blanket or pillow or stuffed animal that's in the basement or whatever it is. Now all I get is back to bed, night night, very robotic. There's not much to be gained from that. I'll just quit doing that and I'll go to sleep on my own. The specific issue with the younger sibling is solved by a white noise machine. You put a white noise machine somewhere they can't reach it, you turn that on, it drowns out the noise. I talk with parents about this every day and hear time and time again that they don't wake up their siblings. And in general, siblings don't wake up each other unless they're like punching each other in the face, which sometimes happens at our house because our boys share a room. But in general, the noises of the night of the sibling don't wake up the other sibling. That's not for everybody, but for the vast majority of people, that is the case. And so I would bank on that and hope that that's the case for your kid and realize that a white noise machine will help just buffer all those noises out. And they typically don't wake up for each other. The other thing that you can do is instead of like continuing to go back in, a strategy that I talk about in Mighty Sleepers as well is camping. And essentially what you do in camping is you're going to kind of camp out either in the room or outside the room in the hallway so that your child gets used to them going to sleep on their own without you there, but they're not constantly getting out of bed and they just get in the practice of staying in their bed. I have done this. I am currently in the process of doing this a little bit with our 4-year-old because she will come out or scream or those sorts of things. What I do is I take my Kindle in. Actually, she gets my Kindle from my nightstand and brings it in because she knows that I'll do it. And then I lay on the floor and I don't engage, but I just lay there for like 15 minutes reading my Kindle. She plays with her stuffies. I say night-night. I leave the room, and then she goes to sleep on her own without any requests, without any banging on the door, coming out, or anything like that. It's just kind of, it helps to slowly ramp into going to sleep on your own. And it's kind of nice. Like, it's endearing. I don't mind like 15 minutes of my time just sitting and listening to her. Like, lately she's been singing a lot of Hamilton. And so her stuffed animals will act out Hamilton and whatnot, and it's pretty funny. And so that's what I would do, and that helps to just like ramp up to bedtime. It helps them to calm down. They're not like at the fight or flight of like, I gotta get these things and I gotta get more things. Then what you can do is move out of the room and say, I'm going to camp in the hallway. You need to stay in your room, but I'll be right here in the hallway. You can see me, I'm right there, all that. And then eventually you can move down the hallway. Eventually you can be done with it. Or you can keep doing it because some people like to do it. I don't mind the 15 minutes. Like I said, it's fine and it's kind of fun and it's cute and endearing and it like gives me a chance to just like sit, and sometimes I'll just like try not to fall asleep but just kind of lay on the floor and like think my thoughts. So that's what I would suggest. Camping, robotic response. Those are the number 1 and number 2 things that work best for that age group. Okay. Has this been helpful? Comment yes below if so, because I like doing this and it's nice to see the comments that people are engaged and finding it helpful. As I take another sip of coffee, as I take a drink of water, I usually don't drink bottled water. I have mine right here, but I didn't fill it up before we got started. Okay. Couple more questions. Hi, Dr. B. What guidelines would you recommend for visitors with a newborn through 3-month-old? No visitors, only family with mass, only adults with mass, etc. At what age may you have said visitors? Would mandate all visitors have flu and Tdap even if they will see baby seldom? I'm just having trouble reading today. Okay. This is a common question and concern is about the newborn to 3 months in general, and then in a pandemic. In a non-pandemic year, I think it's fine to have visitors. And I do think it's best if they get their flu vaccine and they get their Tdap. Flu vaccine because during flu season, getting a baby getting the flu sucks for the whole family because everybody needs medicine. Everybody needs to do all the measures. And so making sure that people have their flu shots, making sure that people have their Tdap because of the P in Tdap, which is pertussis. And pertussis is a bacterial infection that we can immunize against that protects babies from getting whooping cough. In normal adults, whooping cough sucks because you get this. They literally call it the 100-day cough, and I've had patients that have coughed for 100 days. I've had patients that have broken ribs coughing because the cough is so intense. So that's adults. In babies, what we worry about even more than just like terrible, annoying, hacking cough, not eating well, all the things that go along with persistent coughing, is they can stop breathing, and they can just have sudden apnea where they have no breathing, and that's what whooping cough can cause. So we want to keep those newborn babies protected, cocooned, because they can't get their first pertussis vaccine until they're 2 months old. And so we've had pertussis outbreaks in the community. Thankfully, we don't have one right now, but we have had those since I've been in practice. And that's what we worry about the most, is that baby that gets whooping cough from a community spread, from a parent or sibling or those sorts of things, and then they have periods of apnea where they will stop breathing, and that's very scary and can be fatal. Sometimes they'll have periods where they have an apnea and then they start breathing again, but I mean, it's really something that we worry about. So I do think in general it's good to say, hey, if you're going to come see baby, please make sure that you're going to get your flu vaccine, get your Tdap. Now, if it's a one-time visitor from out of town and they're not going to be around on a regular basis for the baby, less important. If grandma and grandpa fly into town and you say, hey, you got to get your Tdap at Walgreens, and then you got to come back in 2 weeks, I was like, well, we're already be gone. Have them wear a mask. Not a big deal. It's the caregivers and the people that are going to be around baby that it's most important. So grandparents that are caregivers, relatives that are seeing baby, babysitter, daycare, parents, siblings, cousins, those sorts of people. It's most important for the vaccines. The one-time visit, you don't have to get their immunization record before you answer your doorbell. In a pandemic year, the issue is frequently we have no idea how long this pandemic's going on. Our relatives want to see our baby. We want our relatives to see our baby. They're only a newborn once. Like, you can't cuddle a newborn in 6 months, and what's the pandemic going to look like then? And frankly, there's relatives that could have serious disease between now and then if they get coronavirus, and we don't want to miss them out. Like, that's an important thing for parents to get to share their baby with their older relatives, so that grandma and grandpa or great grandma and grandpa can see baby, and they might not have the opportunity. And there's enough risk going around that we don't know what the future holds for anybody, let alone those that are already at higher risk. And so I think it's fine to have grandparents, great grandparents see newborns, because it's only a once in a lifetime thing, and you're not going to want to regret that forever. And this pandemic is lasting and lasting and lasting. And what I would say is, make those important decisions with the idea that, like, they might not get to see another newborn of yours because they could get coronavirus and have serious disease or die from it. And you want to share that moment with them. And there's ways to do it safely. If this was March or April, I'd say, nope, 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 don't do it. It's not worth the risk. Now we know masks work. Now we know that being outside or socially distancing or having good, adequate ventilation helps to reduce the risk. And so I think that it's fine. And I've told parents, and parents ask me this. I see newborns all the time, and they ask me this all the time, is like, when can their relatives see their baby? And I think it's fine to have them come and see baby, especially those that are older, especially those where it's really important, grandma and grandpa, that we might see them. This might be the last Christmas that we see them. Well, let's have them see baby. It's sad to think that in that way, but we don't want to just say, well, we'll let you see baby when they're 6 months old or they're 1 year old or something like that. So what we're going to do is say, hey, I would really love for you to meet my baby. And if you proactively do it, then they don't have to ask, and it feels like, this is really important and I really want you to be able to do this. So what you do is you say, hey, I really want you to see my baby. If possible, can you try and limit social outings and visitors and things like that in your home and in close contacts, in anticipation of getting to meet baby in a week or in 2 weeks, just so we can keep everyone safe. And then what I would ask you to do is, I really want you to come and get to cuddle and snuggle baby and sit inside our house because it's cold and it's winter. So can you please just wear a mask? And I'll wear a mask too. Obviously the baby can't wear a mask, but we can all wear masks so that everybody can stay safe and we can have that moment together. I think that's totally fine. I think that's appropriate, and I would hate for the alternative to happen, which is for parents to wish that they had got to let grandma or great grandma or grandpa or those important people to us hold baby, but it didn't happen and we didn't get the opportunity, and we live with that regret and probably could have gotten away with it, and just all of that frustration. Now, if grandparents are sick, if they've been around somebody that's exposed, then they should just wait a couple weeks. But if in general you can say, hey, I would really like for you to see baby, can you try and keep everybody safe and keep things, masked and short visits and outside if possible. Obviously, you're not going to take baby out if it's snowing, things like that. But if we can do that when possible, then that's great. And then I think it's okay. Hope that makes sense. Comment yes below if you agree. Comment no, that's terrible advice if you disagree, because I would love to know what other people are thinking. There's no specific playbook for all of this. This didn't exist a year ago. These conversations wouldn't be happening in the same way a year ago. So we're doing the best that we can, but I think we have a pretty good idea of what we should and shouldn't be doing. And I think it's safe to do that if we're masked, if we can isolate or quarantine a little bit in advance when possible, if we can keep visits short and wear masks, then I think it's fine. And it's important to see grandparents and see those things. So that's my advice on that. Okay, I've got one more. Oops. Question. Oops, I already did that question. Okay, I think there's one question that came in over a text message, at least while we're being on. Oh, this is a great question. Okay. Hi, Phil. Parenting in the time of COVID-19. We are in the first flu season at daycare with our 13-month-old and have had 2 separate colds in the last month. Tested for COVID-19 and isolated until we see negative results each time. Should we continue to get tested every round of sniffles and coughs? Also, this is the rest of it is talking about how we knew each other in college and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is a huge question. What do you do? I'm going to center myself just a bit now. Huge question that frequently comes up is, we have kids, they're in daycare, they get sniffles, they're in school, they get sniffles. Do we have to test for coronavirus every single flippin' time and then isolate and wait and all these things? It puts a tremendous strain on us as a family to isolate every single time we get the sniffles. It puts a tremendous strain on our doctor's office to handle every sniffle. It puts a tremendous strain on daycare and school and all those things to have everybody in flux all the time. And I wish I had the perfect advice to say, here's when you need to do it, here's when you don't. But unfortunately, we know that a lot of kids can have minimal symptoms and have coronavirus. So what we need to do is look at our community and look at the community spread. If we're up at a high place, if we're in the red zone, and the best place to find this information is if you go to covidactnow.org, covidactnow.org, you can break it down by state, you can break it down by county and get the very specifics. When case counts are high, it's more likely that you have a potential to have coronavirus. If that's the case, then I would recommend leaning towards the testing more frequently. If you have had a specific exposure, if a kid in the same classroom or daycare setting has had a positive, then you should get tested. If there's no specific exposure, then I think it becomes does daycare or school require it? If they require it to get back in, just go get the test. Like, at least as bungled as the response has been to the pandemic, insurance companies and the federal government, everyone is saying, hey, we're going to cover the cost of the testing so it doesn't hurt your financial well-being when already the pandemic has hurt our financial well-being. So go get the test done because we want to limit the spread, because in terms of overall healthcare expenditures, it's more effective to get testing than to have rampant coronavirus. If community spread is high, pull the trigger more frequently to get tested. If you've had a specific exposure, pull the trigger more frequently to get tested. If it's a case where you're not really sure and you've got something coming up. Now, we shouldn't be doing all these normal get-togethers and things like that, but I know that people still are, so I'm just going to speak to that. If you have things coming up where you're going to be around relatives, get tested quickly. I had coronavirus 3 weeks ago. The day that I got tested was a Saturday. Sunday, we were supposed to get together with my wife's family for an outdoor, socially distanced as possible family gathering, and there were going to be elderly people there, like in their 90s, and they're at high risk. And so that was a really close call in my book. And so if you have something coming up like that and you're not sure, get tested. Like our office, we do probably right now, lately, we've been doing about 120, 130 coronavirus tests per week. So divided by 7, that's like 20, 25 per day or something like that. And fortunately, we're getting to the place as a country where we can get the testing done that needs to be done. We're not testing enough, actually. Locally, we're at 20% almost positivity rate, which means we're missing a lot of the cases that are going on. And so we do need to drop those levels down lower by doing more testing, because we know that if we're at 20%, then there's a lot of people that are not getting tested that are positive and spreading it in the community. So we need to get those numbers down. So if community spread is high, if you've had a specific exposure, if you're going into a riskier situation where you could put somebody else at risk if we don't know, those are reasons to get tested. And then obviously, if school requires it to get back in school, or daycare requires it, or you're just not sure, then get tested. If it's just a mild sniffle, if you haven't been around anyone that's been positive, if you are not seeing anyone in the short term that's at higher risk, I think it's fine to kind of see how things go and watch and wait. I think the bottom line is what I've said right there with the different parameters is the vast majority of people are going to fall into the category of just getting tested. And I have a very low threshold to test. Honestly, if you come in with cold symptoms and you don't have a readily identifiable cause, I'm going to test you for coronavirus for the most part, because we just don't know. And we have in Nebraska right now a ridiculously out of control surge and really high positivity rate. So I'm more likely to test you. If you live somewhere where the case count is really low, you probably don't need to get tested as much, because it's less likely to be the case. I hope that makes sense. I hope that was helpful. And I hope this has been helpful. If you are on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. What I want you to do is not miss the next time we go live. So hit subscribe. If you hit the little bell button too, then you'll get notified as soon as we go live or anything like that. So you can hop on, you can comment, you can ask your questions. And if you have more questions, comment below with your questions, or ideally text me, because that's the easiest place for me to look for one spot to get all the questions, to answer them. 402-256-0768 is where I'm at. Keep up the good work. Stay strong. Have a happy Halloween. Enjoy.